How I closed my first real estate investment deal at 25 and made $42,000. Now, I know that sounds very gimmicky and very guru, but I swear this is a story that happened to me, and it actually started my entire real estate investment journey. You see, prior to that, I was slaving away doing residential real estate sales, and I wasn't really making that much money. So one day I was doing cold calls and I came across an old woman that didn't want to deal with me at all. I said, hey, this is Steven from Keller Williams Real Estate. I just want to know if you wanted to ever sell or list your home. And she said, who the hell is this? I said, ma'am, it's Steven from Keller Williams Real Estate, and I list people's homes that want to sell. Do you want to sell? She said, I don't want to list nothing. I want to get off the phone. Here's the thing. If you want it, you can come buy it. If you don't want it, don't bother me. And she hung up on me. So then I was at kind of a crossroads. I wanted this potential listing, so I did a little bit of a white lie. I called her back and I said, you know what, ma'am? If you don't want to list it, I might be interested in buying it. Can I come see it? She said, don't waste my time. If you want to come see it, you can come see it in the next 2 hours. I said, oh gosh. So I had nothing else to do that day, and I got in my car, it's a Chevy Cobalt at the time, not super important, and I drove to the worst part of town that you can imagine. Liquor stores everywhere, there was porn video stores, it was back then, and I got to the house and it was disgusting. She was smoking in her car. She got out of the car. She was still smoking. And she said, this is the duplex that I own and I'm just over it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. The tenants have been terrible. Which now that I see in hindsight, that is a classic landlord story. So I jump out of the car, shake her hand. She's blowing smoke in my face, and she said, let's look at it. So we go on one side of this duplex and there is mold, there's dishes in the sink. I just remember vividly these macaroni and cheese boxes, and half of them had been spilled out on the table, and then the other half has been like eaten away by rats or something. It was disgusting. I was actually kind of a little bit scared, but I said, I can't let this 80-year-old woman show me up and look like the real man in this situation. I have to kind of make it look like I'm not as afraid to be in here. And I have to make it look like I've done this before. So we go into one side of the duplex and I said, there's furniture in here. Does anyone live in here anymore? She said, no, I evicted them. I kicked them all out, but you can have the furniture if you want the house. And I said, okay. And I said, can we go on the other side of the duplex? And she said, yes. So we go on the other side of the duplex, and it was even worse than the first side, if you can believe it. My business partner was out of town at the time, and I usually consult her when we do any kind of transaction. And I was thinking, I'm gonna have to call my business partner to see if there's something that we want to do with this property. But I couldn't think of what I wanted to do with it, because we usually would just list these houses and take 3%, put them on MLS. So we walk outside and she says, all right, time to put up or shut up. She was very aggressive. You can either buy this house or I want you to get out of here right now. I said, okay, whoa, how much are you selling this house for? And she said, I want $45,000 for this house. And I don't know what came over me, but instinctually I said, how about 40? I'll give you 40. And then she said, I can't do 40, I can do 42. And I thought about it for 1 second, because all the amount of money that I was able to make in real estate up until I was 25 was $43,000. And I had $43,000 in the bank account, you know, after expenses and living and stuff like that. That was all I had in my bank account. So she said 42. And I said, all right, let's do 42,000 for the house. Now, this was huge for me. My palms were wet and shaking. I was cold. I was scared because this was something I'd never done before. I've worked with a lot of students now that describe the same feeling in their body going through their first deal. And I just want you to know, if you're one of those beginners, that is completely normal. Just because your body is so uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. So I luckily agreed to that. And I said, I have a blank contract in my car. Do you want to sign it right now? And she said, yeah, sure. So I got it out, put it on the hood of my car, and we signed it. Now, this was a huge risk, but also a huge risk that I had already capped the downside in my head. So when you put something under contract, there is something called earnest money. And that is a deposit that you put onto the contract for you to tell the seller you are in good faith gonna buy the house. So I said, all right, I will put down $500 in earnest money for this house. And she said, okay, that's perfect. Now the strategy there was if I decided that this was not a good deal, or if this was something that I wanted to walk away from, or if this is something that I didn't have the money for, then I was gonna be able to drop out of that deal and only lose $500. So even though my body was in panic mode and I was very nervous, I did know that my downside was capped, and the worst that could happen was I would lose $500. And she said, okay, you have 24 hours to deposit the $500, and I want to sell this house in 30 days. And I said, okay, I will buy it from you in 30 days. We wrote it into the contract and I left. And I called my business partner in the car and I said, hey, we just bought a $42,000 house. And she said, what are you talking about? I didn't agree to this. And I said, yeah, no, I know, but I feel like it's a good deal. So I ran to my office and I started to comp it out. Now, I was in real estate prior, so I had an idea of generally what houses in the neighborhood go for. But when you comp it out, what you look for is you look for 6 months to 1 year in the past what has already sold. So I was looking at other houses that were a duplex, that were 1,200 square feet. Now maybe it was like 1,100 square feet, it was tiny. And it was 1 bedroom and 1 bath on each side. And I told my business partner, I don't know the comps. What do you think the comps are? And she said, shit, I don't know the comps either. What do you wanna do? I said, let's take a risk, let's try it. We bought it in cash. I think I had like 500 or 600 bucks left over once I had bought the house that had to get me through, which was horrifying, but I was 25, what else was I gonna do? And so then we decided to do the easiest thing for us possible. So instead of fixing up this duplex, spending thousands of dollars to try to make it nicer, to then sell and try to get the highest price possible, we sacrificed that and probably a little bit of money in order to do speed. So what we did was the day we bought it, we decided we're not gonna do anything with this. We're just gonna take pictures and we're going to put it directly on the market for sale again that same day. I went over with my iPhone and took iPhone pictures of this house, like 6 or 7 of them, and then we immediately put it into MLS for sale. So I thought, what the hell, we don't have any comps, let's just go with our gut feeling about what this house might be worth. So we put it on the market for $85,000. I think it was $84,950 or something silly. And within that same day, we had about 10 showing requests. That told me 2 things. That told me that this will potentially sell very quickly, and it also told me that we were probably grossly undervaluing our property. But it doesn't matter, we had already made that decision. So multiple people came to show the house, and within the first 48 to 72 hours, we got about 3 all cash full price offers. And within another 14 days, we had closed. So the total profit was around $42,000 that we made in a little less than a month just from cold calling.